Welcome everyone to the PreVeil CMMC Level 1 mock assessment. This is the capstone project for those members who have been completing the PreVeil pathway or the PreVeil track. Really exciting day for all the members, kind of like graduation day. I know Edgar feels proud, like a proud parent. But for those who don't know, my name is Darius Phillips. I am the founder and executive director of the CMMC Professionals Network. Our mission is to just provide hands-on training and mentorship for those cybersecurity professionals who are pursuing careers in CMMC. We're big on just helping members develop beyond just getting certifications and giving them that hands-on experience. And this PreVeil track will be the first track that members have completed for level 1. So PreVeil's leading the way. And checking to see if we see anyone from PreVeil has joined yet. If so, y'all, I want to give you all a moment to say any comments, but I want to give a big thank you to PreVeil. I worked with Jamie, and PreVeil was the first cloud service provider to provide us with free licenses to make sure that our members have that hands-on training. A big thank you to PreVeil. All right. And so on that note, I'll hand it over to the lead CMMC advisor for the PreVeil track, Edgar Venterpool.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Edgar Venterpool. I'm the lead advisor. Today, I'll be sharing my screen, and we'll be going over our first mock assessment with the leading class that's paving the way with everybody. I'd like to give a round of applause to Alan, Neil, Anita, David, Kim, Keith, Anthony. I know I'm missing a handful of people. Let me go down my list. I know we got Mike, Eddie, and who else? And I know I called out Anthony already. Golden. I'm very excited for y'all guys today to get started with this. So let's just hop on in because we're going to be crunched for time. So the first roundup that we have is for Neil, David, and Keith. David, could you tell me a little bit about your company today?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Edgar. Our company, Rock Solid, is a DoD facilitator. We interface between construction companies and the DoD to facilitate them drafting SOWs, helping with their proposals, and also that interface with getting responses from DoD and helping those clients get through the procurement and awarding process. So we are the liaison facilitator of that role in this space. Our network is pretty small. We're on-prem. We have about 10 workstations. Those workstations are broken up into 2 different groups. Our people with those workstations, folks that handle FCI and folks that are on the commercial side that do not handle FCI. Pretty basic network setup. We have 2 VLANs that split out both groups of folk, have domain controllers, network firewall, switch, and a router out to the internet, which then gets us access to our PreVeil cloud system. So that's a bit of a high level for the scoping of what's going to be involved for today's discussion. Any additional questions? I'll pause right there.
None at this moment. Would you like to just jump right on into it?
Yes, sir. Sure.
All right. But first assessment objective that we'll be going over today is access control. So it will be a limit information system access to authorized users process acting on behalf of authorized users or devices, including other informations and systems. All right, I noticed you gave us a brief description of the system itself and what the company does behind that. First, control. Authorized users are identified. Could you tell me a little bit more about this process?
Sure. At the beginning stage, we have our onboarding policy for new hires that contains pretty much what that role is going to be. And it's also looked by the manager that's going to take on that person. Then that's fed into our access control list. We have one for our domain controllers, since we're a Windows shop. And we also have an access control list for our PreVeil cloud system. We follow pretty much the policy of getting them onboarded using both ACLs, and that's also tied into our SSP, which references the ACL list for both sides, as well as links to our onboarding policy and how we onboard our staff.
Yes, I received y'all evidence earlier today. I was very impressed that y'all had an SSP, even though you're going for level 1.
Yes, we like to keep our artifacts fresh, and we know that's going to take us to the next level when we try to go for level 2, but primarily for evidence collection and making sure we have things to show in the event that we're asked to produce those pieces of paper and documentation.
Okay, so for authorized users, your users are identified via your access control list, correct?
Yes.
All right. Processes acting on behalf of authorized users are identified. Would someone on your team like to speak to that between David, Neil, and Keith?
Yes, as David aforementioned, we would start with the onboarding policy that initiates the approval process to create the respective accounts in the local domain, and as well as the rights for what's in scope and out of scope with PreVeil. That being said, there's also an acceptable use policy and a training policy that is applied. Now that gives us record so far as the processes and so forth and authorization. Now PreVeil, being outside the local domain, that is managed locally by an administrator, but PreVeil manages on their sides. It's unmanaged so far as the process is on their side. Now, I will mention that as PreVeil is a federal moderate equivalent. They hold a certain standard that allows third parties to perform with DoD, which is to our liking.
So to confirm, you have a procedure for both the domain on-prem and for the PreVeil environment, correct?
Correct. And it all starts with the onboarding process. There's reports with the acceptable use policy and the training, the user training as well. Those artifacts are held with the domain ACL and the PreVeil ACL as well. And that is included in the SSP.
Thank you. Does any other assessors have any questions?
I just have one clarification, please. Just checking, you had alluded to this earlier. So in terms of the process of configuring which processes are acting on behalf of the authorized user, is that role assignment identified in policy?
Yes, ma'am. In the local domain, there's a global policy based on role-based access control, and that's included in our onboarding policy, what the requirements are that are needed.
I did see those artifacts for both PreVeil and the screenshots inside of the environment for y'all. Thank you for providing that. Any other questions? If not, I'll move on to the next one. Device and other systems authorized to connect to the system are identified.
Yep, I'll take this one. As part of our evidence that we've provided to you, we provided a network diagram that graphically displays all the devices. And in addition to that, we also have access control lists specifically for the devices, both in our Active Directory domain and as well as in PreVeil itself.
How often do you review those documentations? I think somebody mentioned a network diagram also.
Yep. Okay, so for the access control lists, they're reviewed on a weekly basis on Wednesdays, and the network diagram is updated as needed when the devices are added or removed from the diagram, as well as on a semi-annual basis.
How do you track those changes?
Well, we have an asset inventory list that the devices are added or removed from as needed.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I'll move forward. I consider that one met. Would y'all agree with that? Go there.
Yes.
System access is limited to authorized users. So
I'll take
go
Sure.
there.
That particularly solved by or addressed by our AD organizational unit groups. Again, as I said earlier, those are separated by functionality. So for the commercial side and the FCI side, also our AD groups, as we referenced earlier, we have our ACLs as well as our PreVeil account list. So all those combined pretty much allow us to make sure that it's limited to authorized users. On the PreVeil side of things, the workstations do have the client certificate installed that helps authenticate that they are the right person after they log in through the layers of authentication through the domain controller to then access the PreVeil site. So PreVeil knows who's allowed to come in to the enclave since they have ACLs, and we also have management tools on that side of the house. And if we have someone that leaves, we remove that workstation from PreVeil as well as the client on the person's former laptop. That's how PreVeil authenticates on their side.
Any questions? I would consider that one met, guys. System access is limited to the process acting on behalf of authorized users.
I would reiterate what David mentioned on the 311 Objective C. The AD is separated in different OU groups. There's commercial use, FCI use. There's also the PreVeil account list that is managed by the local administrator. Two different systems working in tandem for security. Of course, you would have to have the authorized user machine with the certificate to be able to communicate with the PreVeil. That being said, the PreVeil ACL and the local ACL are kept on record and updated with any add, remove, change, respectively, to our chain of control.
That covers that. Does anybody have any questions or concerns? Not, I'll move on. System access is limited to authorized devices, including other systems.
Okay, so the way we authorize our devices initially is through an Active Directory group policy. This separates our FCI enabled devices from our regular commercial environment. The second aspect to that is within PreVeil itself, we manually add in the devices into that interface. One of our administrators has FCI access and is able to do that for us. And once the device is included into the PreVeil environment, a certificate is then placed on the device that authenticates it into the PreVeil environment.
Could those certificates be altered or changed in any way?
No, it's a limitation from PreVeil that the certificate is non-editable. It can't be transferred from device to device. It's bonded to the device that it's issued to.
Can you add multiple devices?
You could, you can with PreVeil out of the box, but we've limited that to a single device per user within our environment.
Would you be able to screen share that for me to show me that process?
100%.
Thank you.
No worries.
All right, we've finished the first assessment objective. We'll be moving on to now 3.1.2. All right. Transaction and function control. Limit information system access to the type of transactions and functions that authorized users are permitted to execute. Letter A, the type of transaction and function that authorized users are permitted to execute are defined. Who would like to grab that one?
I'll go since we're going on Neil, David. So yes, it starts off again, as I stated earlier, with it. We have our onboarding policy that really helps set the tone in terms of the person coming on, defining their role. Management confirms that they need certain access rights, whether it's for the FCI side or the commercial side. Off from there, that gets populated into our Active Directory access control policy list, access control list rather. Again, mapped to the user ID, to the AD user, and then also to the group policy as well, that machine is going to be used by that particular user, whether they're on the FCI side of the house or the commercial side of the house. The PreVeil side of the fence pretty much follows a similar fashion. Pretty much in anything processed on the PreVeil side, they have their onboarding piece, and also we use the PreVeil ACL. The environment currently is unmanaged, but we manage the administrative pieces of adding users and removing users. As stated earlier, with the workstations, they have their certificates for each person authorized on the FCI side, and then PreVeil allows us to add those workstations and delist them if that person goes away.
Any questions from other assessors? Would y'all consider this one met? Seeing a nod, so we're good. System access is limited to defined types of transactions and functions for authorized users.
Well, I think that I'd like to reiterate where David came from on objective A there. There is record starting with the onboarding policy. On the local domain, there's a global policy that also allows role-based access control for correct authorization of functions and processes. So far as the PreVeil environment, the respective ACL provides your privilege, but I would like to highlight that PreVeil does have a feature, say, if you're to create, read, delete options, it actually has a feature to where you can check to not sync with the local drive so that you would be able to prevent any accidents and data moving to a particular drive locally.
Could you show me that this feature is turned off?
Yes, that evidence is an artifact taken as a screenshot in the administrative console, and it is connected to the profile in the ACL.
Okay. Any other questions? Not. They get a met from me. We're gonna hop down to access control, external connections, FCI data. Verify and control limit connections to and use of external information systems. All right, this one is still with Neil and David. Objective A, connection to external systems are identified.
Yep. Within our network diagram, we identify all external systems that we connect to, and they're also referenced within our SSP.
Okay. I did review your SSP. Thank you.
No worries.
Any other questions?
I'd like to highlight that PreVeil is the only approved external connection for the policy.
Say that again.
I'd like to highlight that PreVeil is the only external connection approved in the FCI environment.
Okay. Could you elaborate a little bit more on how that works?
Yes. So the network diagram does indicate on the external side that we're connecting with PreVeil. That being said, the local host, the hardware itself, as a certificate, only can connect externally with PreVeil. And likewise, as a responsibility of a vendor, they can only connect externally with our host due to that related certificate. There's also rules in place in the local domain that help add preventative measure.
Okay.
Global policy, excuse me.
Okay. Do anybody have any other questions? All right. Moving on. All right. The use of external systems is we argued about this the other day. Is R/R identified?
Yes, I'll take that. So as stated earlier, a lot of this, there is some overlap with A and 312B. The network diagram plays a key part in that. It outlines the external systems identified to include like what Keith already mentioned with the connection out via the router, behind that the firewall, and behind that via the switch, via two VLANs, and all that is depicted in our SSP. As stated earlier, PreVeil is our external system. We do have local rules as well as firewall rules to make sure that folks can visit that site, the FCI side, and only that site, try to whitelist down. And then from the PreVeil, like we said earlier, it connects to workstations with the proper certificate. If that person does not have that certificate, it cannot connect. So there is a bit of a rinse and repeat regarding that depiction of external systems via our network diagram.
I didn't see the actual artifact for your network diagram, but I did see it in your SSP.
Yep.
Okay.
We can provide a separate breakout of that diagram just so it's easier to reference. Sure.
Thank you. But I did see it in your SSP. Thank you.
No problem.
Would y'all consider this one, Matt?
I do have a question.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, how are unauthorized external connections, how are they blocked?
So we do have Palo Alto firewalls. We kind of spend a little money on that. So they pretty much are blocked with whitelist down. So the first rule, pretty much if that's not satisfied, wherever that endpoint is visiting, it will block. So if they're visiting a site such as CNN.com or something that's not authorized, it's blocked. So that first rule kicks in. If they pass the first rule, then the next rule kicks in terms of what they're allowed to do. The Palos have audit logs, so we can also change our firewall rules, set them. So we can also provide that if you want to see an example of a rule change.
The global policy is also in place within the domain on both VLANs. That does, the artifact is reflected with the audit reporting.
Would you consider that one met, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Good job. Connection to external systems are verified.
I think Keith is up in the rotation.
Now, Keith just, oh yeah, you should.
I think I had to go. So Keith, I think we do the David Keith Neal show.
Well, external connections are verified as before mentioned with firewall rules. Also, the global policy and the local domain, the ACL rules. PreVeil is unmanaged on our side, except for the local administration.
I noticed y'all mentioned it before. Would that also be demonstrated inside of your network diagram and SSP?
Yes.
I know y'all just talked about that from the question that Anthony asked.
Yes,
So
it's evident in the network diagram as the external system use. There's a company policy that only allows system use. It has to be adhered to.
Okay, I would consider that one met. How about you guys?
Yes.
Next one. The use of external system is verified. For the sake of time, y'all did cover this already. If you would like to speak to it, would y'all consider these met? This next one. Connection to external systems are controlled and limited. Could you touch on this one a little bit?
Yep, by all means, we will. So we have firewall rules that we've already discussed previously.
What is this? Hold on. Go ahead. Apologize.
No worries. So the firewall rules that we've already discussed control what access users can basically have once they leave our network in the internet. And those are also based on ACL rules within Active Directory as well.
This would be also demonstrated in your network diagram and SSP, correct? Anthony, any questions? Kim, any questions?
Maybe just confirm in the context of how PreVeil fits into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So definitely PreVeil is an external system. And as we'd already mentioned, we have the firewall and the switches that based on the user's authentication and their access control groups will allow them to connect to PreVeil. Another authentication factor with that is the certificate and the device being added into the PreVeil environment, as well as the ACL within PreVeil for the users.
Good job.
I'd like to add that PreVeil is a FedRAMP watered equivalent as well, held to a high third-party standard by the DoD. The external connections are verified there as well. The controls limited authorized use.
Good. I would consider that met for the next two ones because you explained both external and systems and external control, how you limit it. We will be going over control public information, FCI. Control information posted or processed on publicly accessible information. Individuals authorized to post or process information on publicly accessible systems are identified.
I'll take that one. So we do have our acceptable use policy, which covers social media sharing and the procedures to which person would like to share something on one of the public websites. We do have levels of approval that have to get leadership behind it. We have a pre-draft review, post-posting, but it all starts with the policy, which touches on social media. And we have references to that policies.
Do you have a process to remove if something is posted unintendedly?
Yes, we do. Treat that as an incident. And so as part of our incident management, we work with our management, legal, and IT team, and as well as the individual that maybe investigated that posted the item. We then contain it, find out what the damage is, approval, and then proceed to contain and remove that particular piece of information off of the facing site.
I like your answer. You covered all 5 of the controls. So again, for the sake of time, you did explain individuals authorized to process or post information publicly. Procedures to ensure FCI is not posted on process on publicly accessible systems are identified. You did talk about that. You did talk about the review process and your actual chain of command for the information process. Content on publicly accessible system is reviewed to ensure that it does not include FCI. Didn't hear you mention anything about that.
So our pre-review process, should looks at it to make sure that there's no FCI information on it. If during the review process, somehow it gets through leadership, legal, pre-review process and is posted, we immediately look at what's been posted. And if we catch it on the back end, we then spin up an incident. But a pre-review process through the different layers of reviews helps us with identifying anything that might fit the category of FCI posted.
Because the mechanisms are in place to remove and address others posting an FCI, of course.
Like I said, our onboarding and AU policy, when they come on board, they get a taste of what they should be allowed to do. And then the social media policy helps look into that as well.
All right, we move on to identification and authentication. Identify information system users, processes acting on behalf of users or devices. System users are identified.
That begins with our onboarding process as well. That creates record, approval, grants the access, and verifies that the appropriate role and the appropriate information available is assigned and created. In PreVeil, that acts respectively. Once the local domain is created, the local administrator will follow the same add, remove, change policy via change control, and that is included within our SSP.
All right. System users are identified. You did touch upon that. I would consider that one met. Processes acting on behalf of users are identified. You did mention your change control process. How often is that change control process reviewed?
The change control process, I believe, is reviewed quarterly, unless there's an add, remove, change, which would indicate a new hire, somebody moving on from the company as well, or however it must flow with the adoption of growth.
So does the change control process differ from your local domain environment versus your PreVeil?
No, sir. They're all respectively reviewed. As aforementioned in access control, there's actually weekly reviews as well. The access control list of both the local domain, respective to both OUs, as well as the local administrator handling the privileges within PreVeil.
I would consider that one met. Device accessing the systems are identified.
Yep. So as previously mentioned, we have a network diagram that graphically displays all the devices. And then on the Active Directory side, we have an ACL list for domain access. Within PreVeil, we have another ACL for access within PreVeil. And those devices are added in manually by our PreVeil administrator, and both of those are referenced within our SSP acceptable use policy as well.
Any questions, guys? All right, next assessment objective, authentication, FCI data, authenticate or verify the identity of those users, process or devices as a prerequisite to allow access to organizational information systems. All right, assessment A. The identity of each user is authenticated or verified as a prerequisite to the system access.
I'll take that one. As we stated earlier on the identity control section, or the AC controls section on identity, We do use the Active Directory domain controllers to help identify each user, and they're authenticated when they're logging into the domain. Again, our onboarding use policy helps with getting the username, what they're about to get to, OUIs, also have group policy. So our Active Directory really takes care of that piece on the Wintel side, domain controller side. On the PreVeil side, as we stated earlier, each workstation that is accessing FCI has certificates installed on the workstation so that when they are allowed out to PreVeil, PreVeil recognizes that workstation with the authenticated user who is allowed to go into the enclave and either go through file folders or do secure email. And we make sure those certs are installed. We also make sure there's the backup procedure in the event that the workstation loses or the person forgets their login ID. We make sure that we run the backup utility to save that profile information, since PreVeil does not keep passwords. So we make sure we do that for each endpoint that's going in there, so that if that is person's information is lost, we can restore that with the restoration process. PreVeil does make you have to go through approvals for restoration, which is fine, because then you have that all auditable to make sure that the person's workstation that was lost is noted, and when we reinstate it, it's also noted. So that's a good feature there for auditing purposes. And pretty much we have our ACL on the PreVeil side as well. So that's how we authenticate on the PreVeil side. And then earlier, as I spoke, we authenticate through the Active Directory on the Wintel side for users.
Do you have Roman profiles for your domain?
Not at this time, no. We have it. We're a pretty small shop. We don't envision people using different laptops. It's 5 and 5, so they pretty much don't end up having a use case where they're logging into another laptop or another workstation that is not theirs. It helps with the spillage, so we can track one asset to one individual.
Do y'all have spare laptops?
We do have spares in the event of someone breaking or spilling coffee or damaging their laptop. Once we discover that laptop is damaged or not functioning, we make sure that it is decommissioned, wiped from our side. And then we also send that laptop off to a third party, which then gives us a certification that the drives have been wiped clean as well. Drives are encrypted, but we want to also make sure that everything is clean. So we have a third party do that.
So the identity of each user is authenticated or verified as a prerequisite to the system. You did touch on that. The identity of each process acting on behalf of a user authenticating or verifying as a prerequisite to the system access. You did touch upon that on both the domain and PreVeil. The identity of each device accessing or connecting to the system is authenticated or verified as a prerequisite to the system. You did talk about that for your domain and PreVeil, and for the spare laptops when you configure them, correct?
Yes.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions? All right. Now we're going to be switching over to media detection. This will be Eddie, Mike, Kim, and Anthony. All right. So this will be the next 2 questions here.
Okay, I can take oh, sorry.
You guys hear me okay?
All right. We'll be going over media disposal, sanitize or destroy information system media containing federal contract information. System media containing FCI is sanitized or destroyed before disposal. Kim, you stated you wanted to go first. Let's go.
So I'd like to speak to sort of 2 areas of handling for this objective. So first of all, at Rock Solid, we do have an asset sanitation policy, and that follows the 888 standard process for sanitization. We follow that up with a third-party destruction company that provides a letter of certificate. Now that speaks to our Rock Solid devices. In terms of the PreVeil environment, we leverage that FedRAMP certification. So the PreVeil, instance of Rock Solid inherits that sanitization or destruction of the media of the FCI before disposal or release, and that's handled with that FedRAMP certification.
What happens, like, let's say if you want to, you lose an employee and you want to repurpose a device, what do you do?
So again, in terms of the Rock Solid side of things, as I believe David spoke earlier, we don't repurpose the drives, right? Those are sanitized, purged, and destructed, and then we will, format a new one with the appropriate authentication and onboarding and role-based assignment for that user to that new device. From the PreVeil side, so a couple of things I'd like to note there is, again, I've already spoken to the handling of of the destruction inherited from that FedRAMP certification. But also in PreVeil, there is an administration dashboard where you can remove individuals from assigned devices and then reassign as they get a new device. So again, speaking to our onboarding process, again, whether you have someone new or maybe a transfer or a situation where someone is swapping out a laptop, we would handle that process according to our policy and use that control within PreVeil to assign that new user to that authorized role in PreVeil. And it would establish that new sort of digital certificate for authentication in that PreVeil environment on that laptop.
Any questions? All right.
I have a question. So what if a laptop is like, lost or stolen? So how do you guys handle it?
Right. So again, from the PreVeil side, we would remove that user from that device. So you can actually disassociate that and there's nothing that can be done with it. Our team members have mentioned already with our group policy handling and AD and that role-based assignment of that user, we would just remove that user from any of that assignment. And then for the device, it is encrypted according to our encryption policy so that someone couldn't, log in using stolen credentials or something like that. Does that help to clarify, Anthony?
Oh, yes, it does. Thank you.
Good
Great.
job. Would y'all consider those met?
Yes.
Yeah, I already see the thumbs go. Eddie, you'll
Yes.
grab the next set of controls. We're going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to a different part of the company right now. Okay. So I'll come back to you.
Okay.
So now we're going to physical protection. That will be Alan, Anita, Neil, Mike, or Kim, and Kim. So, all right. Limit physical access. Limit physical access to organizational information system, equipments, and respective operating environment to authorized individuals. Authorized individuals allowed physical access are identified. Which one of y'all like to go first?
So I can go.
Up, she
So-
got you, Alan.
We maintain an access control list of employees with physical access with employee badges, which are tied to HR records. So like I said, physical access control list, badges to access to FCI room and differentiate to commercial room. Employee badges and key cards are tied to HR records to distinguish the different access level. We also maintain list of employees in Microsoft Active Directory and PreVeil access control list. We also document when people leave the company or join the company, and we maintain documentation and review the access controls on a weekly basis.
Okay. That you basically covered the controls. Authorized individuals allowed physical access are identified through your access control list. We can all agree to that. Physical access to organizational system is limited to authorized individuals. Yes, you did explain that between the different domains and the key card access with the access control list, right? Physical access to equipment is limited to authorized individuals. You didn't touch on that. Could you elaborate a little bit more, or would you like Alan to grab that one?
You want me to get this one?
Mike's like he's stepping in. Oh,
I know you took my shine, Mike. Well, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
We can do the last.
So physical access to equipment is limited to authorized individuals. Again, we bank on the identification of authorized individuals through directory services and the physical access to the equipment. The equipment is is in a locked room, and then within the locked room has a locked cabinet as well. The individual seeking access to that equipment has to pass through both obstacles. And again, it's using their key cards to make sure that there's a record made of when they enter the room, when they access the cabinet, when they close the cabinet, when they left the room.
How often do you audit those logs?
Those logs are audited continually because we're looking for false attempts or failed attempts to get into the log. We also look for the timeliness of when the person tries to access. If somebody tries to access it at 2:00 in the morning, like we know that Kim really likes to sleep at night, and it wouldn't be Kim that would get in there at that point in time. So that's an immediate red flag.
Okay, good one. I would consider that one met. Physical access to operating environment is limited to authorized individuals. Alan, could you touch up on that real quick? I noticed that.
Yeah. So in response to B, we also require the MFA for a badge and pin. And we also have posted throughout the location, authorized personnel only signs, and that helps maintain access log for the restricted areas too.
Any questions for anybody? Everybody shook their head at the same time. Good one. All right, next one. Manage visitors. Bear with me. PE. Manage visitors and physical access. Escort visitors and monitor visitors' activity, maintaining audit logs of physical access and control and manage physical access. Visitors are escorted. Somebody please touch up on that.
Yeah, I'll take that one. So any visitor who comes to our facility, first they need to be invited or have an appointment with a member of staff. If there's no appointment pre-made, they'll be turned away by the receptionist. If they do have an appointment, the receptionist will call the staff member who invited them on site. That staff member will escort them throughout the building. But before they leave the reception area, they'll need to sign in, and then they'll be escorted throughout the building with the escort. And we also have CCTV to monitor their progress throughout the building. They're basically under the supervision of their escort the whole time.
How would you be able to differentiate between a visitor and the actual employee?
The visitors are required to wear a visitor badge, which clearly denotes them as a visitor. It has the big V on it, so kind of hard not to miss.
Okay. All right. That's one. Visitors are escorted. You did cover that. Visitor activities is monitored. You did say that with CCTV. I do have a little bit more questions about that CCTV. Who has access to that CCTV?
I'd be our IT staff. Our administrator has access in there, and they can pull logs anytime we need to. In addition to that, the log that the visitor signs in on, they have to also sign out on. So there's a log of them coming and going.
Okay. You just touched upon the next control for that one. Physical access devices are identified. Did you grasp that one? I didn't catch that one.
That's kind of outside the visitor, but I'll definitely jump in on that one.
Hold on 1 second. Yeah. Physical access devices are identified. Which, if you like to carry it, or somebody else on your team can answer.
They're on the network diagram.
What was that, Mike?
They're on the network diagram.
He said they're on the network.
They're identified on the network diagram.
Oh,
I like
okay.
Yes, that's where the cameras are.
Just give it a straight. It's a whole. You're like it's a diagram. Yo, just look at her like, what's a network diagram?
Yeah, the network diagram and data flow diagram.
Physical access devices are controlled. Are they controlled? Could you explain that to me?
Sorry, Neil.
I'll let you go.
I was going to let you take the rest of the spreadsheet, but I thought, let me just give you a break and I'll.
Yeah, I need a little breather after that one.
So just to confirm, Edgar, we're on 310.5B, physical access devices are controlled.
Yes.
Okay, so at Rock Solid, only authorized security staff issue badges and keys. We do collect access cards on transfer, or when an employee leaves, and any spare keys are stored securely. We maintain logs of that inventory as well as the issuance and revocation of those badges and keys. The access control list, as we've noted earlier, it is connected to the badge we have Microsoft AD and then also our PreVeil access control list as well. So when an employee, for example, would want to access, let's say they want to use their key to access a FCI laptop, for example. So first they would use their secure card, which is authorized for them to access the locked room where these devices reside. They would have to check it out of an individual locker. We have a one-to-one relationship there with the laptop and the locker, and they would enter their unique PIN assigned just to them to access that locker. Once they get the laptop out, they would sign in with their AD credentials that gets them into the laptop. But then it's their sort of digital certificate authentication, recovery key on that device that matches to them in PreVeil that lets them into PreVeil. So they get through a couple layers before they are actually able to access that FCI environment.
That's good. You covered the physical access devices are controlled. Physical access devices are managed. You did cover those. But one question, with that PIN that they use to access, I didn't hear y'all mention that before. How do you handle that?
So that's also part of the AD controls, and then that's unique to the user. And after they enter it on the actual physical device, it resets so that it doesn't have that memory of what that user entered.
Okay.
Does that help to clarify?
Yes, man, it did. Any questions, guys? All right, let's go. We're almost done now. We're over the hurdle. We're going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to have to leave some time for questions and feedback, right? So the next group would be system and communication and protection. That one will be Eddie, Mike, and Kim. Eddie, you are up next.
All right. So with the way Rock Solid defines its system boundary or external system boundary is through a network diagram, which is basically visually, it's a visual external boundaries. We can also provide that to you as an artifact if you need it. We also have a firewall network diagram that demonstrates the where the VLANs reside. We also provide a web proxy and a web server in the DMZ, which is also external access by employees. We also have a access control list that is for domain and also on PreVeil. All of these items are located on our system security plan. And for PreVeil, it's pretty much a matter of having the administrator install a certificate for the access control list.
It is defined. Key internal boundaries. You did define or communicate about your internal boundaries also. Are they monitored?
Are they monitored? Yes.
How are they monitored?
Well, they're monitored by
Right.
logs. So
Go ahead, Mike.
So the logs are sending events, both failed access, failed attempts as well as successful attempts. Again, we're looking at anomalies of individuals that have no business, knocking on the door, or individuals coming in during odd hours or trying to use a protocol that they're not allowed to use. So it's basically just looking at the anomalies and trying to determine were they successful. One of the things that we have to look for is geofencing, because we want to make sure that, for example, if we don't have anybody that is our customer in China, we shouldn't allow any traffic from China coming into the network. Or if we have somebody trying to go out to a gaming site from inside the network, we're going to look at that and investigate whether that was appropriate or not. So we're looking at it from both ways. And again, we're relying heavily on the logs.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that, you two. Great job, Eddie. Communications are monitored at the external system boundaries. Eddie and Mike did confirm that. Make sure nobody's gaming or somebody from an external country is trying to breach in. Camera messed up a little bit. Yeah. Communications are monitored at key internal boundaries. You did specify about that with your firewalls. Communications are controlled at external system boundaries. You did express, you can touch upon that again with your firewalls and switch configurations. Communications are controlled at key internal boundaries. You did say that again. Communications are protected at the external system boundaries. You did explain that. Communications are protected at key internal boundaries. You did explain that also.
what?
Go ahead.
Yeah, for 3.13e, it's controlled,
It's controlled.
not protected.
Okay, I apologize. Control.
We handled both of them.
But
Yep.
yeah, it's pretty much the same.
Well,
We have all the
Control is when we block it, and protect it. Protect us when we block it, control us when we're looking at it.
All right. Eddie, would you like to grab the next one? Publicly accessible system components are identified.
Sure. So again, the way Rock Solid handles this control is through firewall segmentation. We have a network diagram, access control list for the domain, and with PreVeil, and then we also have a system inventory, SSP. The asset guide and the SSP pretty much identifies the publicly accessible systems, and then the use of the DMZ with the boundary control also includes routers, gateways, and firewall rules. Of course, through PreVeil, this is only accessible from the workstation with the certificates.
Good job. You did cover both objectives in there. So we're going to move on to the final section. We're going to jump back to Alan, Anita, Mike, and Kim. If you was to give me a nice high-level overview of the last set of controls for system and information integrity, and then we'll leave time for questions.
So for this control, we have a 4-hour scan window for our devices. We use our system criticality, sorry, I can't say the word, time and metrics to determine to prioritize how we do our vulnerabilities. So it's going to be 0, critical severity, that's at 3 days, medium severity at 14 days, and low severity at 30 days. We also make sure we report those vulnerabilities within 24 hours of discovery to our management team. And we use our patch management policy, we use our vulnerability management policy, and we also have monthly patch month reports if we need to track anything, have approved patch reports, apply patch reports. And we also use our incident response plan when necessary. And any other details we can provide in SSP.
Good job. You covered everything. You touched up on identified system flaws as specified. You specified on the time frames. You specified the time of reporting. You reported within a specific time frame. The correct system is specified. System flaws are corrected within a specified time frame. Again, good job, guys. Now we're
Yeah,
going
the
to
one thing
go ahead.
the one thing we didn't cover, we're very proud of our threat intelligence function. It helps us know what's going on in the marketplace. And when we hear about something that is potentially impacting us, we'll go out and make sure that we do a scan and see whether we've got that problem.
Okay, Mike. So let's you grab the malicious code. That was next. Designated locations for malicious code protections are identified. Talk about it.
So malicious code protection, we have our malware protection software on an ongoing basis, updating on an ongoing basis. So as soon as new definitions have been released or new anomalies are announced by the manufacturers of that code, we're on it and watching for it.
What is the name of that?
We have automatic updates, so we don't do anything. It just goes on, flows in.
What is the name of that software?
Of that software? The manufacturers themselves are telling us when it's we use Palo Alto. It has a malicious code update process for its firewall, so it's going to tell us that we just released new definitions. And by the way, it's been updated.
What about the endpoint management and PreVeil? Could you help him out with that?
Sure. So in the rock solid environment, the Sentinel-1 will address those scans, those endpoints in our on-prem environment, and then PreVeil runs scans in the PreVeil environment. So rock solid doesn't manage that patching or scan activity in the PreVeil environment. We'll just address rock solid's environment.
I'm gonna jump back to Mike. So with that happening on the Palo Alto, that happening at the endpoint management, and then PreVeil managing the environment, what happens if a virus is already in a file and you send it via a PreVeil?
We have a policy in place that for any file that is downloaded to one of our devices or workstations, there is an automatic scanning process of the download. Make sure that no malicious code is embedded within that download.
Good job. All right, let's finish off strong. System and file scanning. Perform periodic scans of the information system, real-time scans of files from external sources as files are downloaded, opened, and executed. You did just cover that. Good job. Yeah. The frequency. Hold on. Anita, the frequency for malicious code scan is defined. Could you grab this section?
Yes, so we're scanning our devices every 4 hours, and also
where is that defined at?
In our policy.
Which policy?
Patch management policy, scan policy, and antivirus policy, Sentinel-1 policy.
Real-time malicious code scan files or external systems. Files are downloaded, opened, and executed. I did notice that Mike did cover this before. And as of right now, we're about to hit submit. For congratulations. Yes. Any questions, guys? After the questions, I'm gonna hand it over to Derek and see what we can do. Are there any questions?
No, we did a good job, I think, but we'd love to hear some feedback from Derek and of course yourself, Edgar.
Yeah, I'll let Edgar go first. How do you think they did, Edgar?
I'm impressed. The fluidity. We went from spending 3-4 hours doing it to getting it done in just a little under an hour. Or a little over an hour?